Okay, so today we're going to take a deep dive into self-control
Mm,
and like how to actually get stuff done.
right, exactly.
And we're going to
Yeah.
try to avoid like making any huge changes.
Yeah, just like small tweaks to your routines and habits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Dr. Mike Israetel, in the foreword of this book that we're looking at, uh, he really emphasizes how even these like small little changes can actually lead to like really, really big results.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we're going to be covering like all sorts of different areas,
Mm.
from boosting your productivity to like sticking to a diet plan, how to push yourself in the gym, and even just like how to feel more motivated.
Right. So like we really want to make sure this is immediately useful for people.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's jump into it. One of the first things that I think is fascinating is this idea of like the two-system theory. You heard of this?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so basically it's like this battle in your brain between like your rational thoughts and your emotional impulses,
Right. It's like the angel and the devil on your shoulder.
right? And like sometimes like the environment can really affect those impulses more than you think.
Oh, totally. And like this really interesting study that I was reading about, there were these guys crossing like a really high swaying bridge.
Like a scary
Yeah, like a scary bridge. And then they had like a female interviewer waiting for them on the other side. And get this, the guys who crossed the scary bridge, they rated the woman as more attractive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were also more likely to like try to contact her later.
Huh. So like the adrenaline or whatever.
Yeah, like the adrenaline rush from the bridge like somehow made them more attracted to her.
That's so interesting.
Right. And so it really shows how like external situations can like really color how you're feeling even if you don't realize it.
So like you might not even be aware of like how much your environment's actually affecting you.
Right. Exactly.
So speaking of being aware of yourself,
Yeah.
one thing that I found really interesting is this idea that like we're not always like super accurate about how much self-control we think we have. Like you might think you're like really good at resisting temptation.
Totally. But then like life throws you a curveball and suddenly you're like face down in a pizza.
Right, exactly. And there's this metaphor that I love
Mm.
um, about like the rational rider and the emotional elephant.
Oh, yeah.
So like the rider's trying to like steer the elephant, but the elephant's huge and like has its own ideas.
Right. And sometimes that elephant just goes wherever it wants.
Exactly.
And like one thing that can really throw that rider off is like the nocebo effect.
The what?
The nocebo effect. So it's basically the opposite of the placebo effect.
Oh, wait.
So instead of like positive expectations helping you, it's like negative expectations actually hurting you.
So like if you think something bad's going to happen.
Yeah. Then it's more likely to.
So like how does that actually play out?
Well, there was this crazy story about this guy who like thought he took a bunch of pills,
Oh,
but they were just placebos, but he like started having all these overdose symptoms, like he was totally freaking out
just because he thought.
just because he thought, yeah, and it's like the power of your mind like really messed him up.
Wow.
And they did this other study where they told people that like handling this certain type of paper would make them mentally tired.
Like paper can make you tired.
Yeah, they just told them that. And then they had them do these like mental tasks. And guess what? The people who thought they were going to be tired actually performed worse.
No way.
Yeah, it's wild.
So it's just like you're kind of like self-sabotaging.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where like having an internal locus of control comes in.
What's that?
It's basically believing that you have control over your own actions.
So like instead of feeling like you're a victim of your circumstance.
You're like, okay, this is happening, but I choose how I respond to it.
Okay, so how can we like actually use this like in a practical way?
Well, one thing you can try is like framing your tasks.
What does that mean?
So like if you're feeling mentally fatigued, instead of thinking of a task as like really hard and complicated, try telling yourself it's actually quite easy.
Oh, so like tricking your brain a little bit?
Yeah, kind of. And it's crazy, but like studies show that this can actually help you perform better.
No way.
Yeah. And another thing is like building your self-efficacy.
What's self-efficacy?
It's basically like your belief in your ability to succeed at something.
Okay.
So like before you start a new project or challenge, take a minute to think about all the times you've been successful in the past, or like think about other people who have similar skills to you and how they were able to achieve the same thing.
Oh yeah, like looking for inspiration.
Exactly, because seeing that other people can do it can really boost your own confidence.
Okay, so we've talked about like mindset,
Hmm.
but what about like the actual work itself?
So one thing that's super important for like actually getting good at something is deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice.
Yeah, so it's not just about like mindlessly repeating something over and over again.
Right.
It's about like really focusing on what you're doing and pushing yourself just a little bit outside of your comfort zone. And it turns out that like most people are actually most productive when they work in like short bursts of intense concentration.
So like not those like 8-hour work days?
No, like most people can only really focus for like 2 to 4 hours a day max.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then after that, it's like diminishing returns.
So it's better to like work really hard for a few hours and then take a break.
Exactly. And another thing that can help is like varying your workload.
Like switching between different tasks.
Yeah, and like also changing up the types of stimuli you're exposed to.
Stimuli.
Yeah, like if you've been staring at a computer screen for hours, maybe listen to some music or chat with a coworker.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, because your auditory cortex is actually pretty resilient to fatigue.
Ah.
But one thing you definitely want to avoid is multitasking.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that's bad.
Yeah, because your brain can only really focus on one thing at a time, consciously.
So like when you're trying to do multiple things at once, you're actually just switching back and forth really quickly.
Exactly, and that actually makes you way less productive.
So what should you do instead?
Try batching similar tasks together.
Batching.
Yeah, like instead of checking your email every 5 minutes, set aside like a specific time block to respond to all of them at once.
Oh, so like grouping things together.
Exactly, that way you can stay focused and get more done.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've talked a lot about productivity, but what about like diet and exercise?
Right, so when it comes to diet, a lot of people struggle with like the mental aspect of restriction.
Like feeling deprived.
Exactly. And it's interesting because studies have shown that like the physiological effects of an energy deficit actually don't have that big of an impact on your brain function or your mood.
Really?
Yeah, like people who are in a calorie deficit, they don't actually report being like more preoccupied with food than people who aren't.
So it's not just about like physical hunger,
Right. It's more about the psychological feeling of restriction.
like the nocebo effect we talked about.
Exactly. Like you're telling yourself that you're deprived, and so you start feeling deprived, even if your body's not actually that hungry. And the problem is that, like, our bodies have evolved to be really good at preventing starvation.
Makes sense.
So when you start losing weight, your body tries to fight back. Well, there's this hormone called leptin that normally suppresses your appetite. But when you lose body fat, your leptin levels go down.
Oh, so you get hungrier.
Exactly. And that makes it way harder to resist those like tempting high calorie foods.
So how do you deal with that?
Well, one thing that can help is like having a diet that's lower in carbohydrates and higher in protein.
Why is that?
Well, protein is more satiating than carbs, so it helps you feel fuller for longer.
Okay, and what about artificial sweeteners? Are those bad for you?
Actually, they can be really helpful for people who are trying to lose weight.
Really?
Yeah, because they satisfy your brain's reward pathways without adding any calories.
So it's like a guilt-free treat.
Exactly. And it can be especially helpful when you're feeling mentally fatigued from dieting.
It's like taking a break from your diet.
Kind of, yeah. And speaking of breaks, it's actually really important to take breaks from dietary restraint, too.
Like cheat meals.
Not necessarily cheat meals, but like maybe allowing yourself a little bit of flexibility once in a while.
Okay.
Because if you're constantly restricting yourself, it can actually backfire and lead to more binge eating.
Oh, that makes sense.
And it's also really important to like create an environment that supports your goals.
Like, what do you mean?
Like if you have a bunch of junk food in your house, it's going to be way harder to resist.
Right.
So like try to keep those temptations out of sight and out of mind.
And meal prepping can help too, right?
Oh, yeah, meal prepping is huge.
Because if you already know what you're going to eat, then you're less likely to make bad decisions in the moment.
Exactly.
And studies show that people who follow meal plans are way more successful with weight loss.
Yeah. And they're also happier.
Really?
Yeah, because they're not constantly stressing about food.
That's great. So are there any like final tips or tricks that you can share?
Yeah, be aware of projection bias.
What?
It's this tendency to think that you're going to feel the same way in the future as you do right now. So, like, if you're hungry right now, you might overestimate how much food you need to buy at the grocery store.
Oh yeah, I've definitely done that before.
Yeah, we all have. And so it's really important to, like, plan ahead, especially for those situations where you know you're going to be more vulnerable to temptation.
Okay.
And also, try to be flexible with your diet. Like, don't think of it as a set of rules that you can never break.
So like if you slip up, don't beat yourself up about it.
Exactly. Just get back on track and keep moving forward.
That's really helpful advice.
Heck,
So I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
we have.
And I just want to like quickly recap the 10 main points for everyone.
Okay, so number one, your brain works on a two-system theory. where your rational thoughts are constantly battling your emotional urges. And remember, those external factors can really influence how you're feeling.
To number 2.
The ability to delay gratification is linked to success in life, but your willpower can fluctuate. So cut yourself some slack when you're tired or bored.
Number 3.
Your brain doesn't like conflict, so it will try to resolve it in any way it can, and mental fatigue can really drain your self-control.
Number 4.
Your brain is always doing a cost-benefit analysis, so if you're putting in a lot of effort for very little reward, you're going to get bored and start looking for something better.
Number 5.
Negative expectations can actually make you feel tired, even if there's no physical reason for it, so try to cultivate that internal locus of control.
Number 6.
If you tell yourself that a task is easy, you're more likely to succeed, even if it's actually quite challenging. And remember to draw on your past successes to boost your confidence.
Number 7.
Deliberate practice is key for getting good at anything, but most people are only really productive for a few hours a day.
Number 8.
Vary your workload and take breaks to avoid mental fatigue, but avoid multitasking because it actually makes you less productive.
Number 9.
Structure your to-do list like a calendar and focus on the why behind each task to stay motivated.
And number 10.
A healthy diet is important for both your physical and mental well-being, but don't underestimate the power of psychology. Meal planning and regular eating times can make a huge difference.
Those are some really great takeaways.
Thanks.
So as we wrap up, I want you to think about which of these points resonated with you the most and how you can start implementing it in your own life. Even just one small change can make a big difference.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in learning more, definitely check out the book that we've been discussing today.
And until next time, keep striving for those goals.
You got this.
See ya.